I'm one of 3 representatives from Sussex Action for Peace, which is an affiliate of the Stop the War Committee. We have had our battles with the Socialist Workers' Party, who obviously didn't particularly want us to come as representatives. I'm also a member of Brighton Unemployed Unison and also Jews for boycotting Israeli goods. I have a few comments to make. I think the first one, the question was asked, why has the SWP behaved as it does? The first thing is I think they've actually made, from even their own point of view, a tactical mistake. If they'd accepted the affiliation, there would have been nothing more heard. But you should never underestimate the stupidity of the SWP's Central Committee. Why have they done it? Now, I mean, John suggests it might be because they're hoping to do like the WRP did some years ago and take money from unsavoury regimes. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. That might be true. I mean, I obviously I can't say. I think it's probably political as much as any mercenary. When I was expelled from the IS in 1973, and I can remember Cliff and others saying, whatever else you do in the Middle East, and he gave the example of Iraq then, you may well support a regime or a revolution against the old feudal powers, but you never compromise your own independence, because then the example is, as happened in Iraq and elsewhere, you get butchered. And of course the same exactly happened with Tudor in Iran itself. The SWP has torn that up, and that to me suggests it has moved politically to the right. And I suspect that one of the reasons for doing what it's doing is actually its desire to actually get into bed even closer with the CPB, the old Stalinists of the Morning Star. That's my own view. I may be right, I may be wrong, but I put that forward, and I think we should maybe look at it politically rather than in terms of conspiracy. On the question of what happened last week in the United States and so on, my own view is the United States ruling class is engaged in a fairly fierce debate amongst itself as to what its own options are. And that report, which actually Bush himself had to release, it had been written, I think, in June, July. There is, to my mind, no doubt. There's also no doubt that the European ruling classes, despite the statements of support by various leaders, are extremely unhappy and have been extremely unhappy. Remember Jack Straw, for instance, ruled out military options 2 years ago when he was Foreign Secretary. I don't think one should assume at all that you will get a broad front from the European ruling class. And that comes to really the third point, the comrade who mentioned about ruling indirectly. The old argument about indirect rule, which goes back to the debates in British imperialism, Lord Lugard, for anyone who remembers, indirect rule, and so on. I think the point about the Middle East is that the United States has actually drawn the conclusion that actually it can't rely on indirect rule. That's why it uses Israel as one of its strategic, if you like, gendarmes in the area, but also why it increasingly has to intervene and have bases in the area in order to go out, whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's Bahrain, whether it's the bases that are projected in Iraq itself, and possibly it has its eyes on bases in Iran too. So I don't think we should be under any illusions that part of the problem is its own political weakness in that area. Now I suggest for Hopi that one of the things that it should be doing is actually looking to hold a conference and to work closely also with other groups in Britain who are secular and who are opposed to the Arab regimes that exist and have a working class orientation. Because clearly Iran is not just a secular case. It's a particular regime, a particularly nasty regime, but it's by no means, we know, unique, whether it's Syria, whether it's Egypt, whether it's the Saudis and so on. So we have to have a regional perspective to the work that we do. Okay, thank you.